So afternoon, welcome to episode 4, I think we're on, of U+WE Teachable Moments. And this week we have got another academic staff member. So for once I've not coerced an undergrad into telling me what the year's like, and we've got a bit of a staff perspective. And we've got Liz Jenkinson, who is admittedly from the same faculty, so I'm keeping it local, but from a completely different department, and so it's going to be a very different year. So hi Liz, how you doing? So how's it been for you? We were just briefly talking about your setup that you feel very posh. Tell us more about that.
Yeah, hi Chris. Thanks for inviting me on. It's really nice to have a chat to another member of the faculty. We used to see each other in the coffee room, didn't we, quite often, and say hi and have a catch up. But I mean, gosh, it's been over a year since we've crossed paths like face to face in a normal way, and being in different subject teams, we haven't had the opportunity to chat. So yeah, it's
yeah
nice.
The old I remember when Mark said that there's some money to upgrade the staff room, and what would you all like? And then there was that what do you call it, peninsula. So suddenly there's that leaning spot for us to have coffee, and everyone kind of does the lounge thing, and you don't get, because you can't pass like ships in the night on a Teams. Go, oh look who drifted in.
No, it's not the same. It's not the same. Yes, yeah. You'll forever be the coffee man to me, of course.
That's the one. It's a good job I didn't have like a continuing in order of coffee, because the stacks in the office, there'd just be like crates of it now. If I,
yeah. Are you missing your role as coffee king? Or,
I'm not missing chasing people for, it's been 6 months, would you stop drinking the coffee and pay us? Not so much. And that moment when man, I can't remember what his name was, but the coffee delivery guy, very nice guy, and he'd come in and I'd have to count the cash out because there was no easy way of getting money off people, because I'm not running a service where I have a separate bank account for my coffee gains. So that sort of thing, here you go, Tony, is it 10, 20, 30 and change? And that sort of thing. I don't miss that. But I do miss popping for a coffee. I do. No one's going to see this because obviously we don't put the video up, but I fill this from the filter machine in the kitchen, my thermos, and bring it up at 9 for my morning coffee with my work buddies. And that's really given me less reason to get off my lazy backside and stretch my legs for a good couple of hours, which is a horrendous way to go. Because of course the old way was, well, I finished this one, I don't really need another, but I'm kind of bored of what I'm doing and I fancy seeing a human. I'll pop up and see what's shaking. So that's going to be different for you as well.
Yeah. So that links to what we were going to talk about, which was our kind of working environment and our working setup, wasn't it? So I suppose, well, I'm a health psychologist, so I'm all about how can you, do healthy things. But on the one hand, bringing the coffee up is not giving you the exercise you normally would. But on the other hand, at least you're staying hydrated, Chris.
That's true. My blood pressure's through the roof as a result, but yes, hydrated.
Yeah, it's hard, isn't it? Behaviours have changed a lot. I find that I've had to really try to get myself into a different routine. Just things like walking to get the coffee in the coffee room, or walking to the loo, or walking to a colleague's office, where we're saving time in some ways by doing the online work, not the walking between the sessions. We're also not getting the walking between the sessions, are we? So
no, you used to lament, oh, I've got to get on the ECC. Oh, we long for those days of it's a good long walk. I suppose there is there's several colleagues, and I don't think you fit into this category because I'd see you out and about quite a bit, but those who would have lunch at their desk because they had so much to get on with, so they weren't even stretching their legs in a normal day. And now everyone's in that position where you technically don't have to leave to go and even have a meeting or a chat or to ask a question. I think a lot more of us have slipped into that pattern of, well, I'm got to get up, so I'll just develop hemorrhoids by sitting down for so long, which is a bit of a worry. So have you found that as well? Because you mentioned that your husband improved your setup. Has that given you less reason to stand up because it's all now there?
Well, no, not really. I mean, I am quite conscious. I mean, I like most, I've done less exercise than I might have intended to, especially in the second bout of the pandemic. Really, the early days, it was all Joe Wicks with the kids at 9 o'clock.
We're over freedom now.
All that stuff and long walks and things. Slightly less so. I mean, it's the same anyway, whether we're at UE or at home. There are different parts of the year, aren't there, that are particularly busy, and you do quickly grab your lunch at your desk and things like that. But yeah, I mean, it's just new. It's a new environment, isn't it? Really. I mean, we've been at it over a year, but it's hard, isn't it, to find those reasons to go and do things and get up and have a walk. I mean, I've got my kids to take to school, so that helps. Not every day, but I'm quite glad of that. That gives me a few steps. And lucky enough to have things like a garden, so try and do things at lunchtime if I have got a break to go around and water the garden, or it's quite handy when you order lots of parcels and you're up and down the stairs. do it quickly. But yeah, finding the time is tricky, isn't it, at home? It's about fitting into your routine, isn't it? I think if you can.
I've been so it used to be that my eldest had breakfast club twice a week, which were my earlier days. So I would walk at a breakfast club for 7:45, and then I would run to work. And my wife always takes the youngest to nursery because it's next to her work, and that'd be for 8 o'clock. And then Tuesdays and Thursdays is normal school time, so I would walk the eldest there. My wife would basically do the youngest every day. And then the last couple of weeks, mainly because the weather's got better, and I'm very aware that my steps are about 3 at the end of the day, that and my wife's had a bit of annual leave she had to use up, so she's been home a bit more. So I've walked Ollie to nursery for 8 o'clock, and then walked back, chatted to the builders for a few minutes because we're having an extension done, then walked Lucy at 8:30 to school, or indeed walked both of them to school, and then made Ollie for breakfast club, and then me and Ollie walked back to nursery, purely to get my steps in and be outside, just because it's not freezing wet and I'm staying too still. So kids actually massive benefit, except the bit where they weren't at school.
I've thought about a standing desk actually, or other people suggest sitting on those those big balls you often have when you're
your yoga balls,
or yoga balls. Talking to some other health psychology teachers, academics, lecturers, talking about the benefits of those sorts of things. And I know there's some people in our faculty who use standing desks anyway, aren't there? Yeah. And I've always walked by and thought, that's a good idea, and never quite got into it. But I'm seeing now we are more sedentary and at home more. I think standing desks have definitely got a potential, but I've not taken the plunge yet. I'd be interested to hear from anyone.
It's a different investment, isn't it? Because at work, there are, like I said, there's some people that have got them, and there's a couple of colleagues that one had really chronic back pain, and it made a lot of sense to fix that. I do see some people on meetings that have got a standing desk and they're fidgeting more. It's like they're doing a little shuffle on the spots that, look, I can move. And I kind of like to have one up here. I like having my own study, and I kind of like the idea of getting one, but it's an investment that you couldn't really justify work paying for. Like U+WE hasn't obviously paid for upgrades to my microphone or my camera or whatever. I was able to bring stuff home, but it's not they've gone, we'll give you a home computer and a work computer. Now I can't fit I've got a Surface Pro that's my work one from the office, and it doesn't fit in my running pack, which is a very first world problem. So I can't run to work with my work computer, but I couldn't equally say, well, now that we can work from home and go back to campus, and they'll be teaching obviously on campus, could you get me a duplicate one so I can do both and run? That wouldn't be justifiable. But then a standing desk at home, equally, I don't know how much we could swing that. Maybe the office-based one, but then as people change their patterns more, will there be less justification for office improvements when you're using it less?
Yeah, we've got lots of occupational psychologists in our team, so I should probably talk to them about all these sorts of things. I bet they've got some amazing insights about blended working and hybrid work. I mean, I've never worked from home before. So before I was at U+WE, I was in the NHS, which is very, face-to-face, patient-focused work. And even my research work, I was based at an NHS hospital, and it was seeing patients and it was evaluating psychological interventions and things like that. So I've always been in a face-to-face key worker type job. And then obviously coming to U+WE, it's always been a program leader, seeing students. So I've tended to be on campus, probably 4 days a week, maybe one day at home if it was a quiet day, a bit of research work. So for me, it has been a really big culture shock. I mean, I've reflected on this a lot because my husband's works has been a key worker throughout, kind of front line. So he's not been here. So both the kids have been here with me when they were off, and then they did go in the second time round, and I was the one here, and he was sort of going out, which has its own challenges with it, particularly during the kind of high rates at the time. But I didn't get the variety, and I'm still not getting the variety. So he's here some days, in the office some days now, and mixing it up a bit. And I think it's difficult, isn't it, to sort of explain to people who are going in a lot more what it's like to go from being kind of always in to never in. It's I found it really really challenging actually at times. Those people who know me, if anyone's listening and they know me, they know I love to talk. I'm a big talker. I'm very sociable. I'm quite extroverted. And so being at home every day and working at home not only was quite alien to me, because I've never had a work from home job before ever in my whole working life, but also just didn't really suit my personality very well. So I've coped with it fine. We all got our head down and got on with it. And there's plenty of Teams meetings to keep you busy, isn't there? But it's been a real culture shock for me, I think. I mean, I'm sure it'll be fine going forward, but I am looking forward to a mix of at home.
We overuse the word fine now, I think, don't we, as a coping. Yeah, we sort of say, yeah, it's fine. Yeah, it's good. Because like I said, the going from all to nothing, and you almost wouldn't, it's all, I don't know, there's that sign of being careful how, like people that said that went on furlough, and some were like, brilliant, 6 months, 80%, job done. And others are like, but now I'm losing my identity a little bit. This is really hard. And for us, we were lucky enough to just keep going, but in a different environment. But like I say, going from all to nothing and having sort of kids around and less structure to the day it's difficult to maintain it, I think. And when you are someone that likes chatting and talking and stories, it is very difficult. When you say like my wife's been working the whole time as well, because she's a community physio, and so the very fact that my commute is now going down 2 flights of stairs, but it's straight into making someone's tea or feeding the cats or picking up a kid. I don't have that the commute of for me it was the running, which was more for my own health than anything else, than being in traffic. But you don't have that moment of what do you call it, where you can decompress. I think that's quite taxing on people as well.
Yeah,
which would be your field, wouldn't it?
Yeah, well, I was going to say, I don't want to start getting too academic and bringing in loads of psychology into it and not my own personal experience, because I know that's not what this is about. But absolutely, I mean, that is key for people in stressful jobs or jobs that are either, traumatic, taxing, tiring, full on, is having some kind of delineation between work and home in order to decompress, and also just to kind of reflect and deal with some of those issues, because it's literally right in and out. And I'm very conscious that, obviously there are stress and strains to this job, but there are far more stressful things that have been going on during this pandemic than what I've been doing, thankfully. But it's still, you still have days, don't you, where you take on quite a lot. You have difficult conversations with students or staff members, or, the sort of research that I do can be quite emotional and difficult. So I was talking to somebody last week for a research project, and they were very, very distressed. And then you turn your computer off and you're in your house. You don't have that walk home, you don't have that drive home, the kids come in and that's that. And I think that is difficult. It makes you a little bit, it doesn't help with the brain fog, I think, and the sort of fatigue and the overwhelm, because you don't get that sort of, it's something really therapeutic, isn't there, about walking home through nature or listening to music or, just kind of, all those things.
You take less of it home with you, I guess, because say you've had a difficult conversation with a student or a staff member, and then your office mate is there and they're a good friend too, and you can go, oh man, that was, or you can go, right, I'll go and see this person, or you just go, I'll go get a coffee or go for a walk, and you bump into someone and they go, oh, you look pretty tired, and you go, oh yeah, just, whereas now you take it, well, you are home, and you take it into your home, because the next person you see that isn't in primary school is or an animal of some kind running around your feet is the person that you're supposed to share everything with, but you never share everything with, because you don't want to, you tell them about your day and you tell them about your problems, but they shouldn't be the everything, I guess, because it's unfair on them, and you sort of feel, well, who else am I going to tell about this?
I know what you mean. You get a lot of social support, and again, even from a more academic perspective, social support is so important to coping with anything, whatever it might be, like just daily life, isn't it? And I think it's been really, really important, hasn't it, the social support that we've managed to get from friends, family. I mean, we've had great neighbours. That's made it a lot easier. I've been talking to the neighbours like I would talk to you in the coffee room, or other people at work, because they're there.
Yes,
Because I'm a
not people you
talker,
ever,
it's like
well, not that you've not
taking
talked to
the
them, but
bins out.
you do it a lot
Sorry.
more, don't you? It's more like over the
Yeah.
fence. Yeah.
Yeah. Taking the bins out, jumping on the next person that goes past with their dog and talking about something. But you know, for me, that you know, helps the day go by, and I do not do well with not talking to other people, and you know, talking to people on screen, you know, like this has become more normal now, and I'm feeling it less now, a year in, because this has become more the default, hasn't it? But at the start, when I'm not used to this, that was quite tricky. I didn't feel the same sense of social support and connection to people. And of course, when you're teaching a lot of the time, and it definitely isn't like it is in the classroom when everyone has their videos off, and there is still that connection, but it's not quite the same as being in the classroom when you can't see your students' faces. So I did miss that side of the social support and the social interaction.
I mean, we've when we were on campus, there was a bunch of us that have always gone for morning coffee, and it's, you know, we're in X block, and you arrive when you arrive, and then some of us have to leave to teach and whatnot. And Steve, you know, VC would often stop by, say good morning, and carry on up, and you've got all that sort of mixing. And we've maintained that by every morning at 9 a.m. the Java hour, and it's just a bunch of us, and we join in and we chat, and that's maintained a bit of that. But then you've got the I guess the meeting side of it, where, you know, you'd go to a meeting in a room and you'd sit next to someone and you'd have a chat with them, and across the table someone else having a chat with another person. Whereas now, because it's one speaker at a time, you arrive in a meeting, and I have that similar struggle to you, that everyone knows I'm a talker and I love a story. And when you get into a room and there's like there's 25 people already in the room, and you go, all right, camera on, and they've all got their cameras on, and they're all just sat there, just like biting their fingernails or just staring blankly, like, my God, this is like morbid. Why is no one saying nothing? What's wrong with you all?
You're
And
obviously going to the wrong meetings, Chris. Ours are rivetingly, everyone's very, you know.
Oh man, I feel a compulsion to sort of
fancy hats, all kinds of things going on.
There was one meeting, if I really enjoyed it, and it showed how well people have got to know me that I didn't know that well beforehand, where you sort of joined a meeting, we came out of a breakout room or something, and no one was saying anything, and eventually a colleague quite high up, he went, go on, Chris, say something, you know you want to, and you're like, no, I'm not going to say it now because you're all expecting it. Make your own chat.
I mean, on the flip side, there is something about everyone getting a go, and I am conscious that I am a chatter. And, you know, similarly with the students, I'm conscious that the chatters always used to sort of dominate a little bit. I have noticed that it's given a little bit more of a chance for those who maybe aren't the first to pipe up, to kind of slip in there and get involved in the chat. I mean, particularly during teaching, this whole idea of using multiple channels of being included in lectures and groups and stuff has made quite a big difference, actually, and that's been interesting. Like, I might not get sometimes as much engagement, but I get a much broader range of students sort of saying something or adding something when you pose a question, particularly if you're not asking them to use audio, but you're asking them to use other ways, so typing into a Mentimeter or a Miro and all that kind of thing. And I thought that about from the staff perspective as well. You know, it's often the loudest voices that get heard, isn't it? But now we are all kind of boxes on a screen. You do tend to go round to everybody, and I don't know whether it's maybe changed the dynamic a little bit for the better. I don't know.
I think the digital hands helps definitely in meetings and in class, because there's more of an etiquette that's developed over the year of people are now more, you know, pull up your hand and you wait your turn, and even the me's of the room, as I'm like, I consider myself one of the worst examples of those people that always has something to say, and everybody knows it. Probably why I'm doing this, and it's that sense of, even I'm in there sort of going, well, unless I'm continuing, like, I raised my hand, asked a question, and I'm continuing that back and forth, I'll put the hand down, mute off, and someone else, you know, you'll recognize there's another hand up, and you go, now it's their turn. And even I'm doing that a bit better, which is quite nice.
Well, and the very fact we mute ourselves as well, you have to think about unmuting yourself, don't you?
Yeah.
Whereas in daily life, you know, I think I could do with a mute button occasionally.
Even the under the breath stuff.
Yeah.
Where yeah, you just go, I can't believe they just said that, and you're like, oh my god, I was not, you know.
I do miss that bit though, you know, the little asides and the little written notes and the little chats back from the meeting.
Yeah.
That's where a lot of the work gets done, isn't it? And that's, you know, I think I realised that quite early on, and have been setting up with certain people that I work with a lot, just literally spaces just to chat about, to reflect on the meetings and the student, you know, things like that, because that's what you would do, isn't it? On the walk back, you'd say, oh, what did you think about that? Oh, I wasn't very happy about that. Or yeah, that's a great idea, let's action that in our group. There's less of that, and you have to be more proactive about setting up individual chats with people, or small group chats to kind of implement any sort of learning, or
I think that's where I don't know if it's one of the lessons that we have learned or not, because we've got a little bit better at meetings being more purposeful and let's get through the things we need to do, rather than make it a 3-hour meeting for basically 40 minutes worth of stuff, because everyone's very aware that we're online a lot, because it's so easy to arrange a meeting that they at least now are shorter and more purposeful, I guess. But there isn't as much of the work continuing outside of the meeting as I think there should be. I still often think that the meetings exist to update on stuff that's happened elsewhere that no one knows about, and it actually needs to further the work that we've all been doing using Teams and things like that. But then I'm the digital guy, so I'm bound to think that way. What do you think about that?
No, I mean, funnily enough, I was thinking about this morning. I was coming back from taking the kids to school. I was thinking, gosh, we do these big team meetings, and I'm doing this healthy university chairing now, healthy university group chairing, and so going to meetings with people that I don't normally go to meetings with, so seeing how they run their meetings outside of my teaching team or our faculty, and really thinking, gosh, we should do more work in the meetings, as you say, and because we're all there, and that's when we can all consult on things. And I think we do that sometimes, but you're right, a lot of it is reporting in about stuff that's already done, and actually we could probably send that round before the meeting, but there's always this sense that you've got to report back to somebody, haven't you, and say, look what I've done, I have been doing my work.
Which is like a hangover from 30 years ago when we didn't have email and other means of communication. I was thinking recently about, you know, a bit more of the move to less broadcast when it comes to teaching, and things get buy-in better if people see where it's happening already, like good examples of it. And the more meetings you have now where it says at the top, like, update from, and it's going to be that person 10 stuff. Whoa. If you can have a meeting that's about an update, record that ahead of time, and I'll watch that beforehand, so I'm updated when I get there. Then the meeting can be the Q&A, the discussion. Because if the learning is supposed to be less stuff that you can read outside and needs to be more meaningful, we should do that a bit more in the way that we do projects and work as well, I think, to make that more, let's discuss what we've already updated on, rather than have to have it, because that way you can have a 1-hour meeting that's for activity, rather than a 2-hour meeting where an hour of it is the thing that you could have watched on YouTube or Teams or whatever it might be, you know.
But I think the crucial thing with that is, maybe we're no different than our students, are we? We're all human beings. We will think, right, what have I got in an hour's time? You know, unless it's a really big deadline that we've been working on for months, we'll think, right, what do I need to read just before? And if it's a lot of stuff, we often don't have enough time. There's not a lot of space between meetings or school pickup or whatever it might be. So maybe we need to timetable stuff ourselves, like we timetable our students. Pre-recorded hour here, where you do all the pre-work, and then we'll get together for an hour and we'll reflect on it, because I'm conscious that I think that's a great idea, and I've thought about it as well for any meetings I chair. But actually, you know, does everyone read it? And if they don't read it, how useful is the meeting when you get to it if we haven't read it?
And that's the realism, isn't it? Because it's a bit like, you know, what do you call it, minutes from a previous meeting, and we're going to go through the minutes now, and everyone's like, well, yes, of course I've read them. You're liars, none of you have. Page 2, no idea.
Minutes, Chris, are you saying you don't read the minutes?
Of course we all do, and we add comments and things. Those will probably, and it's the same thing with students. So there's that. If you put up something like pre-reading or something that was crucial to the session, realistically, there's so many deadlines, you know, part-time jobs, carers, all that sort of stuff, that we struggle enough to catch up on the planner of our TVs. There's shows from weeks ago that we got to watch. You throw in having to watch something in order to engage with something 2 days later, the reality is a lot of people aren't going to be able to do it, and there's less enthusiasm. If we were all as good as we want our students to be, marking would never be late because we wouldn't leave it till 3 days before the deadline. But life gets in the way, and that's the reality. And this year's kind of shown a lot of that there's always new things coming along, and prioritization becomes increasingly hard, pulled in a lot of directions. Plus, you got lockdowns and kids and all that sort of stuff. So I think it's been quite a good reality check for what's actually reasonable to ask of us and our students.
Well, I think the other thing that all that's true, of course, and I think the other thing that you didn't mention there, which I'm surprised because you're a tech man, is the tech challenges. So,
yeah.
If you're going to access something, but you can only access it through Teams or through, some other panopto, and that's not playing ball that day. So that's
I do
the
like
other
that when
thing.
people go, "Oh, Teams is misbehaving today," but Teams is so bad, and I'm like, never had it misbehave in my life. You must be using it wrong. But then that's, like you say, that's me being the guy that plays with it all the time. So yeah, actually, how's that been for you? I don't know how technological you've been previously anyway, though you said that your husband set up 2 monitors and you felt quite, ooh. So I guess you were a 1-screen person before.
I was a 1-screen person, Chris, but now I'm a 2-screen person. It's changed my life.
Can't go back. That's right.
You'll be pleased to hear that. I'm joining the dark side now. No, yeah, I'm not techie at all. I mean, I wouldn't say I'm completely clueless. I'm pretty sensible with it. I'm pretty happy with delivering my online lectures, especially now, and all the standard programs and standard platforms, and I'm quite happy with doing our social media, as you probably know, quite prolific on there for the course and things like that. But I have to say, when it comes to plugging everything in the right direction and setting it all up and knowing what's possible, I guess, from what would be helpful, that's less my bag. So if I'm shown how to do it, and I went on all the UE trainings, which I thought were very good, and we had digital champions as well in psychology. So Matt Wood,
you do, don't you? Yeah.
They were absolutely brilliant, because when we were all slightly panicking at times, you had a colleague who you knew well, who had some expertise there, who was able to advise. So yeah, it was much better than I think I thought it was going to be. Transitioning an entire program online overnight, from being entirely face to face for 10 years, was interesting, but actually went really quite well. So I feel like I'm much more tech savvy than I was a year ago, Chris.
Very good.
And I do have 2 screens. I have a laptop and then a attached to a bigger screen, so I can have 2 screens running at the same time on the same laptop. I have a posh microphone, which actually isn't plugged in now, but you can see like a podcast
nice.
one. I'm just throwing on the floor now, back to it. Because of doing some podcasts like this one and a few others. So I'm getting there. I've got a headset, but it doesn't seem to be great, actually, the headset.
I never liked the headsets. I see a lot of people with them, but it makes it seem like you're working in a call center, which throws off the whole delivery style, I feel. If you kind of like, I get one that if people turn away and it's like a lavalier mic, it disappears. But the headset thing just seems too far the other way to bad DJ, I got to admit, the digital champion thing that you guys had was quite big, because I became the default, me and Anthony Hill became the default, can't figure this out within the department, ask one of us. And then I met, I can't remember his name, but you're one of the digital champions. I'm like, hang on a minute.
Matt.
Why he's got a thing. He's got, like, I don't know, I guess it was workload or something, which I don't need any more of anyway. I do extra stuff anyway and just don't tell anybody, otherwise they'd stop me doing other things I like doing, even though I can fit it all in. Your workload's over, so you must stop doing that. Yeah, but the workload doesn't equate to time, and if I can fit it in, let me do it. But I thought, well, he's a champion. I'm just me that's doing a bunch of favors for people for free. And I was like, why can't we have one of those? But I didn't want to stop doing the help for other people, because it helped them get either better or more comfortable or less stressed. And it's interesting you mentioned about not knowing what's possible. Do you think that you've in the past, more so maybe, fallen into that trap of, I can't do this because I haven't been told how it can be done, and there's only this tool or that tool, or like collaborate is the only way you can possibly teach, so I won't try to teach any differently? Do you think that's been quite hard in adapting your teaching for your students' benefit, rather than adapting it to fit the platform you've been told is surely the only way to do it?
Oh, that's a complex question. I don't know. I think I am quite by the book. I think I like to have, and we do have a lot of, like any university has a lot of sort of policies and constraints. And I mean, particularly thinking in psychology, when sometimes we're talking about things, particularly if we're doing research projects as well, we're
Like
using
ethical stuff.
ethical issues.
Right.
So things like platforms for recording interviews or things like that. So I suppose I'm always thinking a bit like that, and so I always want to know what we're supposed to be using, what we're allowed to use, and kind of and guidance really. So I think I'm probably quite by the book, as you say. Like I like to see a practice first. I like to have some guidance on what we should be doing. I'm not I like to try and innovate in terms of my teaching and learning, but probably not the platforms which I'm using. So it was really helpful to have the digital champions, because I had those sorts of conversations with them and said, look, I've been using Mentimeter. It's been really good. I really like it. What else is out there where I can maybe do things a bit differently, but in the same sort of vein? And we, early days, we were using Mentimeter. Then we started using a bit of Miro and other things as well. And what can you do with Mentimeter that's not just this? What other stuff can you do? And
the learning technologists have been good for that as well. That's given them an opportunity to really advise people, what do you want to do, and let's look at how we can make it happen. That's been quite important.
Yeah, the thing I need to skill up on now is exactly what you were doing this week. I saw you were tweeting about it, which is how to really effectively teach people in the room and at home at the same time with the same quality as perhaps doing it in one medium. So I'm just trying to think, because we've barely been on campus for the masters. We were in around the time when you were, it was okay. And we had quite a good turnout. We got quite a small group. But I'm thinking for next September, the situation may well be that we have quite a few people there in the room, but we also might have some people still at home for whatever reason. And how do we make that as good quality as possible and it's still enjoyable and engaging as a lecturer? I don't want to be like talking into 4 different screens and
exactly.
All that kind of thing. I might use my headset then, but
it increases the chances of, CPD students sometimes, they're not even students that are interested, and they go, can this be done remotely? Sorry, because it's in class. So we don't want to switch too much to choose not to come in, because unfortunately the working world isn't going to allow that. So the you come in if you come in. That's how it works. We're not going to start saying there's 100 people on this module, but we're going to give you a room for 50 because we expect half of them won't show up anyway. That's silly.
Yeah.
So, but you need to be able to do it for both. So streaming is going to be a good way to do that. And I was very conscious in thinking to do it, which I did feel bad for sociology, because the only reason my normal lecture theatre was free to do a COVID number and then stream to the rest was because they weren't allowed back anyway. Because my 300-seat lecture theatre was being used for modules that are like 50, which can therefore fit in a socially distanced fashion. So I was like, oh, it's a shame they can't come in. But bonus, I can go in now. But I wanted to do it in a way that other people could do, because it's very easy for me to get carried away with, bells and whistles. So I wanted to make sure that it was using kit that was already in the room, with maybe a couple extra leads or something, but tried to engage them, as you say, both sides equally without losing either part of the performance. And the only thing, and it was quite a good experiment as to how ready are we and what do we need to change without just throwing a ton of money at it, because that's just daft. The only thing that I felt could have helped is if I had a TV wall mounted or freestanding in front of me with the video gallery on, so I didn't have to do that and turn to the side. But I think anybody could do it. That was the beauty. The ones at home, because I asked them before we ended the call, I said, was it any better than when I'm doing it in my study and we're all remote? And they said, well, the delivery was sort of about the same. You asked more questions because there was more people in the room, you can read off them. But what they really liked was hearing other students in the room. That was a big difference. And you must get that more with your subject, because it's more discussional by nature, because yours is less didactic delivery, isn't it? And it's more perceptions and what do they think?
Yeah, largely, yeah. And I think we did miss that a little bit. I mean, we've tried to do that online, but it ends up being a lot of breakout groups, you know, and breakout groups are very, very hit and miss, aren't they? And we've kind of moved away a bit from breakout groups because of student feedback. Yeah, I mean, we were pretty good. I mean, postgrads, you know, they do tend to turn their audio on a lot more, and they do tend to want to chat a bit more. It was still not as much maybe as I thought it might be, maybe throughout the year, but I appreciate that we are all students and staff, you know, feeling the kind of brunt of it all. But yeah, I mean, we had some in-class stuff, and then we recorded it so people could hear it at home, but there wasn't, and they could, and I got them to send stuff in to a Mentimeter, so that we could see their answers to questions, and they'd watch the same things. So there was kind of a funny hybrid mix, but there wasn't a live stream because this was some time ago. We haven't actually had an in-class session since way before Christmas. So we sort of fudged it a bit, and I think it went actually quite well, like better than I thought it would. But yes, you do feel like the people at home miss out a little bit, but then at least they can attend. So, you know, we've had very, very good attendance this year, almost full house for you know, a lot of the stuff, which
it's quite a big course, isn't it?
Yeah, about 30 overall for which is quite big for a master's.
Good for a postgrad. Yeah,
it's much bigger than it used to be. We're very popular these days. Health psychology is on the news now all the time with everything going on, so it's really kind of all of a sudden become even, you know, more popular than it ever was before. Obviously the fantastic program leader as well, of course.
Absolutely. Which is why I do the other podcast thing. Actually, that sort of brings me to your personal experience, because when I was chatting to Jenny Farrell a couple of weeks ago, of course, is a developmental psychologist, child based, and had had a kid around her. Being as you're a health psychologist, and therefore in the back of your mind you've always got to be thinking, is the way I'm working or the way that my day's going good for me, and how's it affecting students? It must be more on your mind than others. How has, I suppose, thankfully, lockdown 1, when the kids weren't in school, we also did not have teaching, and thank Christ school started before the academic year fully started. But how was that interim time of, I don't know how many kids you've got, but the round your feet, and yes, snacks in a moment. Yeah, okay, not you know, that sort of thing. How's that gone for you?
Yeah, so I've got 2 children. One is at the end of primary school, and one's at the start of primary school. So yeah, the one at the end of primary school was fine, although, you know, they still need a lot of attention. My daughter, being still quite young, especially at the start of the pandemic, was more of a challenge. So yeah, it was very stressful. I think, you know, most parents found it stressful, but, you know, there were also some positives in that I did get to see more of the children, and we had some really nice times together in our little breaks and lunch times and things like that, and it did make me realize the benefits of working from home a little bit more, being a bit more around. But yeah, it was a challenge, and I me and my students, funnily enough, have thought even more about stress management this year. So when I asked my students what their favourite sessions were on one of the modules that I teach, they said the stress and stress management sessions. And I was very conscious when I was teaching the stress management sessions that I was kind of going, oh, I really need to make sure I'm putting this into practice in my own life. So we talked a lot about how it's very, very hard to engage in the sort of stress management that involves a solution to the problem, because the problem is totally out of our control. Lockdown, coronavirus, no school, all these sorts of things. And if you focus on trying to change that, then, you know, you can become very stressed. So I think I was very conscious to try and use a bit of my health psychology knowledge and work with the students as well to think about, you know, sort of more short-term solutions, which deal with some of the short-term emotional impacts. So, you know, engaging in things that just take the lid off the stress in the moment, deep breathing, bit of exercise, mindfulness, doing all the basics, eating well, sleeping well, all that kind of thing. And yeah, it was really interesting how myself and the students went through the same journey, going, wow, actually, we really need to take a leaf out of our own book. You know, do as I, you know, it's always do as I say, not as I do in healthcare professions, unfortunately. So yeah, trying to kind of embody a bit of that. And when I did have time with the kids, doing, you know, arts activities, exercise, getting out in nature, because that does genuinely, you know, there's an evidence base for that reducing stress, particularly when stress isn't very controllable. So yeah, I did try to do that. I have to say there have been points where it has been a bit overwhelming, and I think the children have struggled, you know, with not seeing family when they weren't at school, you know, transitional times. You know, my son's had to apply for secondary school without actually visiting any of the secondary schools. It's
of course, yeah,
it's a big thing. And not seeing friends at that age is difficult for him. And then my daughter obviously is missing the kind of, you know, the usual stuff that, you know, children who've just started primary school miss. So yeah, it has been difficult, but you're right. I mean, I've also been doing some COVID-19 related work for the BPS, the British Psychological Society.
Wow.
So there's been a big reflection this year actually on the application of health psychology in my everyday life, in contemporary issues, and actually it's really it's been a deep period of reflection, I think, about the value of my profession and identity. And of course then you go downstairs and you turn on the news and there's your colleagues on Newsnight talking about you know, the pandemic. So it's been a very very interesting period.
It's sort of been a unique year for you because of I mean, you've got the family juggles, but also your area is very relevant, and you can bring a lot into your teaching, and you're, I want to say, better equipped anyway because of knowing more about techniques and what's going on to go, yeah, I should try and, like you say, apply some of that. Did it feel less survival mode therefore, and a bit like, for me technologically it was a bit like, well, I've been preparing for this for years, you know, I'm you know, aside from wanting a microphone upgrade and that sort of thing, because I thought, well, students can have the best speakers in the world, but if the input going in is rubbish, I'm going to sound rubbish, so I'll get a better mic for my teaching. But beyond that, I was like, yeah, I know how to use Teams. I've already, you know, my assessment is automated. My exam at level 3 had been online and open book for 3 years. Boom, I'm good to go. But from the kid at home, like Lucy being home perspective, we were lucky, of course. Ollie was in nursery. My wife's a key worker. He was in, and we thought that's fine. Lucy was offered a place, but we thought, well, it's not necessary because they're not going to be teaching them, and I can manage that. Whereas if I had the 3-year-old at home, or 2 at the time, that's harder because he needs entertaining, and I can't really do that. At least Lucy could have tasks and things. But of course, I struggled a bit with the feral moments, both she and I imagine. It was a bit easier in the summer, and it was funny looking out the window and just seeing a swimsuited 7-year-old just running out into the paddling pool randomly, in and out like a pool on holiday. That was quite easy, but it was a lot harder to adapt for that because I was more coping with, oh, she's around a lot more, but I've got things I need to do, and I'm a program lead, and I was on a lot of these recovery groups and trying to help people, but not wanting to drop the ball with her because she was going through the same thing more so. She's quite techie as well. She, you know, she can, you know, use a lot of the stuff, and she would have calls with her friends and things like that. But yeah, I worried a lot. I was dropping the ball with attention to her. But it sounds like you had that a bit better, or you were better with it than I was, I think.
I think it would be very no.
Is that stretch?
I think that there is a benefit to being a psychologist in these sorts of situations, and that you know the literature, you know what you should be doing, and you maybe do have a little bit of an insight into maybe some strategies, some interventions, some activities that might help. And I guess, you know, I've always been involved in working with children or working with people who have problems or need some support. So there's a little bit of maybe have a little bit of confidence that I maybe generally try to do the right thing. But I think we're all in the same, you know, situation with children, that when it's your own children, you never quite know if you're doing the right thing, do you? I mean, it's very different from a textbook. And interestingly, I think I'm very we're getting a bit deep here, aren't we? But I'm you know, I find it very easy to parent my son, but less easy to parent my daughter. And I think that's not uncommon, is it? Is that certain strategies work with one and they definitely don't work with the other. So yeah, no, I mean, I hope that I can bring some of my, so, you know, I'm a practitioner as well, so I've done a lot of work with patients and things like that. So yeah, on occasion I'm the one in the couple that sort of says, right, well, we could try this and let's try that. And this tends to work, or I've had that training. I've worked with children as well. Before I had my own kids, I did some work with children, and there's a little bit of that maybe at times. But I think gosh, what a tricky situation. I mean, it's a lack of time really for me. Often I know all the things that will work, and usually it's spending quality time with them, and connecting with them and listening to them and responding to their needs, and as well as keeping them fed in healthy food and exercise and sleep. But all that does take time, and when you are, or we all are, overwhelmed with work and worries and everything that was going on, and restricted from doing all the things that kids are happy, not just because of what we do, are they? They're happy with it because they see their friends and they go to school, and my kids play cricket or play, do a lot of things outside the home, go to gymnastics, and all that kind of went, didn't it? So,
and Joe Wicks only lasted about 3 days, didn't it? And then
it's very hard to mitigate for that sense of loss, isn't it? And the kids were used to a certain lifestyle, and then it just disappeared in a heartbeat, exactly the same as we were all feeling. So I think you can put too much on yourself as a parent to be the solution to everything that goes on, and you can't be, can you? Really, you can't solve it all. So I guess it's again a bit of a ramble, but I guess if being a psychologist taught me anything, it's that yes, parents are important, but so is everything else. The social support network, the schooling, the friendships, the grandparents,
there's a lot of environmental stuff, I guess. I mean, that's where I fall down a lot, I suppose, because I'm so solution orientated, which isn't a great thing in a husband, because sometimes my wife just wants me to listen and empathize rather than solve the problem. And I'm rubbish at that, because I go, well, I will fix that for you. And then it doesn't help at all, even though the problem's solved. But somehow I'm wrong. And it's the same thing with my eldest in particular, because Ollie had no idea it was. He knew there was a virus, and he'd say, "Can we go to soft play?" "Oh no, we can't because of the virus." And you're like, "Well, you got that. That's pretty good." Disappointing answer. Whereas with Lucy, it was when she was feeling down or whatnot, and thinking, "Well, how can I solve this? How can?" Or she was getting frustrated with schoolwork because they had to use their sort of a VLE type thing. And I was like, right, how can I make this easier so that you're still maintaining your handwriting skills or whatnot, rather than typing things, or you're doing the maths. So I broke out my old digital tablet so she could draw, and she had to get used to looking at the screen but drawing blind, as it were, to write. But that was me solving the problem, not listening to her frustrations as much. And that's something I think I missed, and I need to be better at generally. But this year has helped with recognizing that not everything's, like you say, solvable. Sometimes it is just being that ear for someone. And thankfully, I don't get stressed very easy. So people can tell me anything they like, and it doesn't feel like a burden to me. It's like, you hit me with all your problems, and I'll either solve them, or you'll feel better for having just vented. And I won't feel bad for it at all. So go for it. I think that's helped some students a lot in a very difficult year. But I haven't been as great with Lucy. I have in some places, because we got better. It was good for us being together, just the two of us all day, because we got to be closer, and my cartoon repertoire has expanded greatly, which is good.
Yeah, I've watched an awful lot of Disney Plus with them.
That's been quite good. So I guess for you, like I say, it's that unique. That's almost your teachable moment, as it were. That unique perspective you'd think would help with everything, has in some cases made you recognize more that every person's different and every child is different, and strategies and techniques and knowledge are helpful, but they can't sort it all the time. So you're constantly reflecting and constantly adapting, technologically or pedagogically or parentally, I guess, to the environment has been the same, with no one and nothing and nowhere to go. Even the food shopping nightmare, because every Saturday I do the food shopping, and I take both the kids. Gives my wife some time. I love it. Most parents hate the idea and can't imagine it. I love that. And all of a sudden, when it was one person must go in queue for several hours to go into the supermarket, the kids were gutted they couldn't come because they were trapped at home. And so we had to adapt to that, and that's been quite difficult. And it sounds like you've been through much the same sort of thing, come out the other side. Do you think you've come out the other side which side, well, not which side, do you come out stronger as a parent or stronger as a lecturer or a practitioner? What do you think's developed best in you in the last
Or
year?
not stronger at anything, just
Oh, not
tired.
stronger at anything.
Just really tired, Chris. I don't know really. I mean, I think ironically, having to very, very quickly pivot to online teaching has given me quite a lot of confidence, I think, in my abilities as a lecturer and a program leader. I'm not sure I thought I could do it quite so easily as it, it hasn't been easy, but I think I've adapted to it much more quickly than I thought. And I think, we've been I mean, it's probably same as you, been at this a long time now, never had to make such a big jump. You become quite comfortable in the way that you teach. And, I've been really pleased at how I can still connect with the students despite it being remote. Yeah. And I have used it. I've changed a lot of the ways I teach, and it's gone just as well. And so in a way that has given me a lot of confidence about my gut, about how things will work, because I hadn't tried it out on anyone, and I just had to do it. And yeah, so that's gone really well. So I think I am probably stronger as an academic, and I've definitely thrown my hat into the ring as a health psychologist for some bigger projects in a really rapid short space of time than I might have done in a normal academic year. I would have thought, I don't have the time for that, but it's really exciting, but I'm not going to be able to do it. Whereas because of the online connection, been collaborating with people all over the country, very quickly doing work that needed doing towards health messaging in COVID. So that has given me a lot of confidence as well about my health psychology's value and my value as a health psychologist, and my students. I've had my sort of doctoral students involved in that, which has been fantastic. So there have been some good things about the last year, although there have been a lot of challenges. With the parenting, I mean, gosh, I've got a child at the end of primary school and a child at the start. So I've already been through the peaks and troughs the last 10 years or so with one, and I'm beginning to with the other. And I think that, each stage has its own challenges and its own, wonderful moments and and they're lovely kids. But parenting's really hard, and parenting's hard when you both work and have a career, as much as it's probably hard if you stay at home with them every day as well. And so I think I've learned a lot about my kids. I've seen how they react to what is a very difficult situation, and that has meant I've got to know them better. And I think they've got to know me a bit better, because of course they've never seen me working before. And that's been really interesting, especially for my eldest, because he really, really understands what I do now. They're listening into lectures and giving me critique. Nice. My son says, "Oh, mummy, I thought it was a really good lecture, but you repeated yourselves a few times then. So next time," I'm like, "Oh, thanks." giving me tips on how to improve. So, I think that's been really nice. Like, it's difficult, that lack of delineation between work and home, but also, like, it's allowed a window on what is quite an opaque world to a child, isn't it? Your mum and dad go off to work and they tell you what they do, but you don't really know what they do. Yeah. Whereas now they really know what a psychologist is, what an academic is, what a lecturer is. And I hear them dripping things in and saying things. And I think, well, that's actually quite nice, in terms of role modelling and whatnot. I mean, not that I necessarily want them to role model everything I do, but to see that, your mum especially does what she does, I think it's quite powerful, actually. So yeah, maybe that bit of it has been helpful. I don't know. I mean,
Lucy has inserted herself into many lectures and meetings. Yeah. People have started saying things like "Hello, Lucy" in the thing. She would just, particularly during the post-Christmas one, and she would just appear and she'd just stand next to me, sort of thing. And every now and then, I think I was doing GI system or something to first years, and she happens to be very much into Operation Ouch at the moment.
Oh yes.
And loves all that stuff. So I asked her a question about the digestive system that I knew the students should have known, and she's like, boom, boom, and they're like, how does she know this stuff? Like, you were showing them up. So she's loved that, because she was that center of attention for a bunch of people that she knows I'm supposed to be teaching. And that was, like you say, a really nice window for her into actually what I do, because she knows that mummy goes and physically helps people, therefore thinks that mummy's more of a doctor than the guy with a PhD. But that's a different argument for a different day, because mummy doesn't have one, but all right. but being able to see what I actually do rather than just telling a bunch of students stuff, that's been really quite rewarding, I think.
I wonder if it'll make them more keen to go to university or less keen. That'd be interesting to see.
Yeah, that's
as a research project. Parents of academics who've had to hang around listening to university lectures for the last year on and off.
feel like a longitudinal study. We'll catch up in 10 years. Yeah. So what do you think you're as the, because you've already sort of demonstrated a lot of teachable moments, but what do you think you're going to take forward with you when we're back? Because when you'll have the opportunity for a bit of hybrid, but the idea is that we're back and it's all on.
Yeah, well, I think from being someone that had never done hybrid or blended before at all, even in the slightest, I am definitely going to be giving it a bit more of a whirl. I think it's worked well this year. I know it's been what we had to do, but I think, that it gives us a lot of opportunities. Definitely going to keep that. Definitely going to keep the online supervision because it fits so much better with most of my students' lives. So otherwise I was cramming it into the days when they were on campus and it was just really hard, and you're very conscious, you've got very short amount of time. Now you can fit it around other things and they appreciate that as well. It's more private, so I share an office, and for a while, especially as a psychologist, there's been a lot of, can you just step out the room, we'll try and book a meeting room. Now it's like, well, I can be at home, with the door shut with a headset on, and I can have a private conversation about a student situation or even a staff one, and no one can really hear it except me. So that I think helps with some of those student conversations as well about personal issues or work related issues in their psychology practice. So I'll definitely keep that, I think. Used lots of new technology, which I will use. I like Mentimeter. I like some of these other things that I'd never considered before.
Yeah.
What else? What else will I bring forward? Well, I think I know even more deeply now that I'm a people person.
You're jonesing for the fix now, are you?
And I need to meet with people, and I was doing a lot better kind of in my just day-to-day well-being and mental health when I was booking in last summer to sit outside with a couple of colleagues and do a bit of work or have a away day or a team meeting, and just have that regularly peppered throughout the term. And I think that gives you something to look forward to. And I think I am going to sort of try and come in on occasion now and work, even if it's just in my office on my own, and just feel connected. Because I've worked at UE for over 15 years, so it feels really strange not to be at UE. It's like my second home in a funny sort of way.
It statistically increases the chances of bumping into someone, even if you're in your office on your own. I mean, yesterday when I was in for this class, I ran into, Richard Strange twice in just walking about, and then I was stopped at Anthony's office briefly to say, hey, Gareth suddenly appears behind. He was on for a reason. I thought, actually, if I'd come in, because there's that idea of being in your office on your own, I can do that at home. But if I know if I leave my study, I'm going to run into no one but the cats. But if you're on campus, you may run into somebody, and you get that, like you said, that little boost of people personness that you've been looking for. So,
yeah.
I mean, the last thing to ask you about, just because to give it to I don't know, to big you up, promote, but the media stuff you've been doing, has that increased your network of contacts and people and where your work's going? Because it sounds like you've been quite involved. Is there anything you want to shout out about that?
Well, I mean, health psychology obviously is been called in really to do what we can with COVID-19. So there was a big group of us health psychologists across the UK called the Health Psychology Exchange, where we all got together to help do some rapid reviews and kind of write some guidance on things like promoting healthy behaviours, which went out to public health officials and public health consultants, using the latest evidence really, and the COVID-19 research that was going on. So lots of things. Had some press releases go out from UE recently around some of that. One in particular was around promoting vaccination behaviour during pandemics. So it was a big review on insights from previous pandemics as to what actually increased uptake of vaccination or vaccination intention as well. So yeah, that was quite a big project, but done very, very rapidly with many people doing bits in their home offices and then getting together over Google Docs and over Teams. So yeah, that bit's been really energizing. It's shown me how important it is that we do these things. We collaborate with big teams quickly to respond to real world problems. And yeah, previous work in the NHS, I do kind of sometimes miss that quick. There's a problem, sort it out in days. That kind of like all hands on deck thing. So yeah, that's been interesting. So yeah, I've been trying to promote that a little bit and get it out as far as possible. So yeah, UE press releases and blogs. I've written a couple of blogs, one for the UE COVID blog and one for the PSRG blog as well, on what everyone in psychology has been doing around COVID, because there's been some other projects as well. And I guess the other plug is for the UE Healthy University group. So I'm co-chair of that as of this time last year with Matt Jones, and we kind of push forward health and wellbeing initiatives across the university, like Feel Good February and Feel Good, our Living Well programme, various other areas. We work closely with the Centre for Music and the Centre for Sport as well, just trying to make UE a more healthy and positive place for everyone to be. So if people have got questions or are interested in that, then they can always drop me an email or Matt as well.
Fantastic. And that's going to be definitely something we've got to take forward into next year, so that we don't lose any traction people have had in, the banana bread period of lockdown, where we all put on 20 pounds and then realized that we were sick of banana bread and weren't exercising, and we've gone back into a healthier lifestyle, I think, almost in preparation for coming out of it and people seeing us again physically. So I think that's going to be really important to take forward, things like the Health University networks. And
if anyone does want to start exercising again but online, the Centre for Sport are just putting on loads of new free classes that you can take part in through your laptop. I think they're going online next week, and there'll be everything from like yoga to Pilates to HIIT stuff. So that sounds really promising. So if people do have a lunch break and want to get active, but they can't leave the house for whatever reason, or don't want to leave the house, there's some options there, which is quite exciting, because still some of the Centre for Sport isn't open quite yet. So it is online mostly, but yeah.
That's definitely good for this time of year, as we all want to get out a bit more as well anyway.
Yeah, absolutely.
Fantastic. Well, thank you very much. That was really enlightening, actually. That was
we did a lot there, Chris. I feel like we really had a long chat about various things.
Went deep on some of that.
Parenting and home setup. I hope people listening didn't find it too meandering. We do both definitely like to talk, don't we?
Exactly. That was something, because people kind of like, because that's what I wanted it to be about, people's years, because then it gives them tell, like, what I've been holding in, and you want to hear all that kind of stuff, you're not really hated, or I think that really helps. So yeah, hopefully it will help a lot of people as we get more perspectives. Everyone will be able to identify with something and go, oh, thank God I'm not alone. And that's really the idea, isn't it? That we've been talking all, but not necessarily openly. It's been a bit more, like you said, podcasts where you're given questions ahead of time to prepare, and you don't get the reality of how we've all been that way. It's easy just to make it up, much like every lecture I give. The facts might be right, but I'm making up what I say as I go. Otherwise, I'd get bored. So on that, thank you very much. Thanks, Liz. So hopefully we'll see people next time for next episode of UE Teachable Moments.
Thanks, Chris. It's been nice to be a guest.